am going to attempt a little bit of Spanish at the beginning to say thank you. Gracias por invitarme a hablar, me siento muy privilegiado. I feel very privileged to be here, and lo siento, no puedo presentar en español. Lo siento. Okay. So, first of all, I'd like to thank Austral University for inviting me here today. I'd also like to thank the British Council and the Bunky Bourne Foundation for working with us on this incredible initiative. And I'm really excited to work with some of these exciting, innovative businesses in the audience today. I can't wait to get going and start working on the mentorship program with you. So, my name's Paddy. I'm head of service innovation and experimentation at a place called STEAMhouse. STEAMhouse is pictured here on the right-hand side. We're based in a city called Birmingham in the UK. Birmingham is the second largest city in the UK, and it's famous for industry. Lots and lots of manufacturing, particularly car industry in the past. And our building is an old factory. It used to be the manufacturer for bicycles, and now we've turned it into an innovation centre. We're part of Birmingham City University, which is very focused on creativity, making, industry, and application of creative ideas. So our aim at STEAMhouse is to make innovation happen. And that happens by enabling all kinds of different people to collaborate from across science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics. So that's the STEAM in STEAMhouse. And the way that we do that is by providing workspace with business support as well. So we provide skills development and training in all kinds of stuff, from creative making skills through to business modeling and things like intellectual property as well to protect your creative ideas. We also have dedicated prototyping spaces full of kit and equipment to help people build new products and services. And we try to make it as easy and affordable as possible for businesses to access what's on offer through our memberships, through innovation consultancy services for businesses, and short courses, and also venue hire and equipment hire for those individuals and creatives that can't afford to access some of the technology that we have. So my day-to-day job at STEAMhouse is to design and develop new products and services that our community of businesses can make use of. And I also lead our innovation consultancy services, where we help businesses to understand quite complex business problems and then create new products and services in response. So here's a peek inside the building. I would love to have a video to show you a little more, but we just have these photographs for today. Top left, you can see our business incubator space, just here on the top left, which is a space created specifically for startups, like some of the businesses that we'll be working with in the next few weeks, who get access to affordable desk space, but also access to industry mentors and a community of like-minded creative businesses. Just below that, here you can see two images from our makerspace. So basically like a very small factory, and that includes material and process zones like wood, metal, 3D printing, textiles, biomaterials. It's kind of a sweet shop for creatives to make all kinds of new products and services. And then located in the center of the building, just on the far right-hand side, you can see an example of one of our collaborative spaces. So collaboration is incredibly important to us at STEAMhouse, and the building is designed a little bit like a donut. And in the center on every floor, there's 4 floors, we have a collaborative space for people from different industries and backgrounds to come together to collaborate and create ideas together. And then finally, in the top middle of the slide, you can see our brand new digital lab, which has been created to help people experiment with all kinds of digital technology, from AR and VR through to motion capture, 3D scanning, and also 360 immersive environments. So that's STEAMhouse. A little bit about me. So I've been designing products and services for around 20 years. And I started my career first in furniture design, I ran a small studio in London, and we designed initially quite experimental furniture pieces, mostly for commission to private clients, but also some on a license model for bigger manufacturers. And then back in 2009, we started our own accessories brand with the aim of creating small items that were part of everybody's kind of daily carry. And that then turned into a watch brand. So I designed and manufactured watches for nearly 10 years. And then I left that business in 2016, and I went to study a master's degree in innovation at Central St Martin's College of Art in London. And then this is really where I kind of rediscovered design as an approach, and particularly in the context of design for social impact. And I ended up working for a design consultancy in London called Shift, and we worked mostly with large charities to help them redesign or create new social impact focused ventures. And this was the first time in my career where I started to work very collaboratively in the design process. Instead of working on my own, designing watches, it was about working with people, co-creating in the design process. And we were tackling very complex problems such as childhood obesity or social division in a part of London, in South London. Get into the topic in hand. So I'm here to talk about designing products with meaning. And I must admit, it's quite a daunting topic to talk about, and one that had me reflecting on our work at STEAMhouse quite a lot these past few weeks. And in fact, it's made me very aware of the objects around me and how people use them again. And as I've observed people interacting with stuff, I'm reminded, that what's meaningful for me is different to you, it's different to the next person. So for this reason, rather than discuss today what meaning in design is, I've decided to present some ways that we've supported businesses to create meaningful products and services, also some case studies, some tools and approaches that have helped people we work with to design products that connect with people on an emotional level. But before I do that, in the spirit of STEAMhouse and collaboration, I'd like all of us in the room today to think about this question for a moment. What is meaningful design? So I have a request for all of you for just 2 minutes. Please grab a piece of paper and a pen, or maybe take your phone and write down what you think meaningful design is. So there's no right answer. Don't overthink it. Just write down what you think meaningful design is to you. Once you've done that, I'd like you to share your opinion with the person sitting next to you. So you've got 2 minutes maximum. So to make a start, I think it's useful to remind ourselves of what meaning is, and put simply, the meaning of something is what it expresses or represents. So I think in the context of design, some might say that a meaningful design is one that fits our needs so well that the design itself is somehow invisible. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there is the idea that meaningful design is more like art, and it feeds our soul through its beauty or through the story it tells. But for me, when we place meaning at the center of our design practice, the aim is to go beyond functionality and surface level aesthetics, to create experiences that connect with people's emotions, their values and aspirations, while also addressing real needs and making a positive impact in the world. I think the things that we make now more than ever need to help people live, to love, and to be human. However, designers today face quite a challenge, and one that's described well by Professor of Innovation Roberto Vaganti in his book, Overcrowded. He says that we're living in a world awash with ideas, where people are exposed to everything, everywhere, all at once. But thanks to the methods that we use at STEAMhouse every day, such as innovation, design thinking, crowdsourcing, and especially emerging digital technologies, many of us have easy access to an unprecedented amount of novel opportunities. But then at the same time, it's more difficult than ever to create products and services that cut through that noise and connect with people in a meaningful way. That said, I do agree with Vaganti that if meaning making is our aim of the design work, that we're able to imagine beyond addressing people's needs and we're able to create products that resonate by triggering positive feelings in people, such as joy or inspiration, or even a sense of belonging. They can even address deeper emotional needs like comfort, security, or empowerment for people. These are the products that we tend to maintain, we take care of, we cherish them, and we love them. So how on earth do we do that? So how do we create products and services that people fall in love with? What strategies can we use to make compelling objects that connect with people? And what are the theories that can guide our decision-making and some of the tools and processes that we can use to get results? It's with these questions that have led me to propose 6 principles for meaningful design. I think if we design with the following principles in mind, we stand a good chance of creating products and services that people connect with. Now, I just need to reiterate that meaning is inherently subjective. I think we've seen that as we're making our notes earlier. And it's influenced by our personal experiences, our cultural backgrounds, and our own individual interpretations. But I've seen projects transform from surface-level ideas into concepts that connect deeply with customers and audiences when people use some of these principles that I'll talk about. So I see these principles today as a kind of starting point, and this is the first time that I've presented them. So from here on in, I'd like us together to build on them. Let's talk about them after the session today as well, and I'd love to hear from all of you about what you think I've gotten wrong, what I've missed, and how we can stretch these principles even further to help people make meaning in their design work. So the first principle is one that probably feels a little bit obvious, and I think it should feel obvious in the context of design. And for me, it's the foundational principle from which we can then build on extra layers of meaning. And this principle is all about placing the needs, desires, and experiences of the people you're designing with and for as the grounding for your design process. This involves empathizing with customers, users, or audiences, involving them in the co-design activities with you, and design iteratively based on how they respond to it. So if there's one thing that we do more of at STEAMhouse than anything else, is to help people understand the problem that they're trying to solve with their design work. And all too often, businesses that we work with have created a solution that's kind of in search of a problem to solve. And if we want to start our meaning-making journey by solving problems for people, we need to embrace empathy and understanding in our design process. It's about stepping into the role of a researcher and loosening our grip on authorship over the design. If we want to solve problems for people, the way we approach design projects should be focused on rigorous research, and then the insights that we uncover will ultimately drive the creative direction of the project, perhaps not our eureka ideas. So to design with this first principle in mind, I think we can start right away by asking some simple questions. What do people need less of in their lives? What annoys them? What terrifies? What hurts them or angers them? What do people need more of in their lives? What would make them happier? What would make them healthier? And what obstacles do people face? What's stopping them from avoiding their pains or finding moments of joy? And while we're trying to understand people, I think as designers, it's also important that we understand what our relationship with those people should be. Are we designing for them, or are we designing with them? Is our role as an expert as a designer, or are we a facilitator of other people's ideas? So one thing that I urge all of our members to do at STEAMhouse is to get excited about design research. I find it super exciting. So when designing with the first principle in mind, we need to become obsessed with the problems that we want to solve. And this is where design research comes in. Techniques like interviewing people or ethnographic studies, they might not be new, but I think that they're essential for understanding the problem and the people that you're creating with or creating for. And the basis of good design research is simply empathy. It's about using creative methods that help us see, feel, and understand the world through someone else's experiences. It's through this human-centered approach that solutions to problems for people are created. The design research approach, in contrast to academic research, is to understand as much as you need to to make an inference or make a hypothesis, and then just start making. The strategy here is to build increasingly higher resolution versions of your product, let your potential users or customers use it, and if they find value in what you're offering, if they do, then you continue developing the product and keep testing what you've got. If not, you can consider changing tack and building something else instead. So there are numerous design research tools and approaches, but the simplest and most meaningful way to understand the problems that people face is to just spend time with them. And an ethnographic study was described to me once as deep hanging out, and I just think it's a useful way to think about it. We can hang out with people, we can understand their problems, their wants, their needs and their desires. It's just like regular hanging out, but instead you're making observations and about the context and behaviours of people along the way. So this picture here is from a project that I worked on where us as a design team, our aim was to design interventions that would tackle childhood obesity in one of London's most disadvantaged neighbourhoods. We spent time with numerous families in the area to understand their behaviours and attitudes toward food. And as part of the work, we set up what are called shop-alongs. So I stood back, I'm behind one of the mums that we were working with, and I made observations about her actions and the environment as she moved around the supermarket and made decisions about food. I asked questions about those decisions, and I mapped her movements. I drew her movements to make a map of how she behaved in the store. And also, we just hung out. We got to know each other. So one of the challenges of design research is to make sense of your observations and then turn them into insights that will inform the design work. One way that we do this at STEAMhouse is by creating characters that represent some of the people that have been observed in the research, usually the specific audience for your new product or service. And by creating characters and situating them in stories that represent the challenges that they face, we can make our research insights come alive. People can see themselves in the stories. They begin to empathise through that process. Also, the design team use characters and stories throughout the design project. It acts as a kind of reminder of the people that we're designing for as we start to develop and get excited about our design ideas. Journey maps that illustrate the way that people currently deal with the problems that they're facing without the new product or service. And by plotting each phase of someone's journey using a problematic product, we can pinpoint the exact moments that lead to frustration for people, and we can see opportunities to create moments of delight for people too. Journey maps help test whether you've really understood as a design team what people are going through, and they help you be specific about where you think design can help them. Then to help give shape to a new product or service idea, we always encourage people to work on articulating a value proposition, and something that I think we'll be working with our businesses on over the next few weeks. This is essentially a simple statement that summarises why a customer would choose your product or service to solve their problem. This is an image of Strategizer's value proposition canvas, and it's a really useful visual framework that helps you map out the fit between your idea and then the people who are experiencing the problem that you want to solve. It consists of two parts. On the left-hand side of the map is the value map, and on the right-hand side is the character profile. So the people that you're designing with are on the right-hand side. The value map describes the features, benefits, and experiences that your idea provides. The character profile describes what people want to get done on their journey and the things that are getting in their way. The goal is to align the value of your idea with the most important parts of your character's journey. And articulating the value proposition early will make things a lot easier when you come to create marketing campaigns that are compelling for your customers or audiences. So making ideas fast. I think this is the stage that all of you will be very familiar with. It's where we encourage people to just start building to see what happens. So start making your idea as lightweight as possible. And this is central to design research. A key part of doing design research is being okay with the fact that your knowledge about the problem and the people that you're designing for is full of gaps. You'll have made a number of assumptions about how valuable your idea is, and that's okay. But the only way to test these assumptions is to make the basic concept of your idea real for people to respond to. And prototypes begin to communicate what you've learned, and they validate or invalidate your assumptions about what people want and need to solve their problems. Principle number 2, this is kind of a level up. And this is all about fitting your design into people's lives. This is all about making people's experience of using your product or service as seamless and intuitive as possible by understanding the context that it exists in and responding to people's mental models and behaviours. This principle makes it easy for people to engage with and enjoy your design. I think if we want the products we design to fit seamlessly into people's lives, we should always remember that when people make a mistake using a product, it's never their fault, it's always our fault as designers. What good is a product that solves people's problems if it's not adopted by people? Generally, people won't want to use a problem-solving product if the experience using it is even slightly annoying. And in Don Norman's seminal book, The Design of Everyday Things, he tells us that as designers, we should always see human errors as design problems, rather than human incompetence. In his view, the design is successful if people buy it, they use it, and they enjoy it. Then they'll spread the word to their friends, their family. For Don, design that people don't enjoy using is a failed design, no matter how great the design team might consider it. And according to Norman, the characteristics of how to create products that people use are discoverability and understanding. Discoverability refers to being able to figure out what actions are possible, so you know where and how these actions can be performed as a user. In other words, they're not so hidden that no one can understand what your product does. Understanding refers to meaning. If we design a product, we'd like people to be able to figure out how it's supposed to be used. We want people to understand what's going on. And I really love Naoto Fukasawa's CD player for Muji. It's an old technology, but I think it's a wonderful example of a product that's both discoverable and understandable. It simply invites us to use it. And we know inherently how it's operated because of a few simple interventions by Fukasawa. He's mounted the CD player on the wall and swapped out the stop-start button for a pull cord. Operating the CD player all of a sudden becomes irresistible to people. And by exposing the CD and placing it at the center of the piece, both the magic of the technology and the CD cover art is celebrated in a space. So for me, not only did this product solve a problem of bulky, shelf-mounted CD players, it also gifts us moments of joy every time we use it. I think it's loaded with meaning, but it also fits seamlessly into our lives. So, my third principle is to be purposeful and responsible. And this is about designing with a clear purpose and an understanding of the potential impacts of your design. This principle takes into account ethical implications and responsibilities in the design process. It includes considering the environmental impact, privacy concerns, inclusivity and fairness. And designing with this principle in mind ensures that the design aligns with ethical standards and social values. Now, the past 20 years or so, we've gotten really good as designers at human-centered problem solving. Us designers have optimized pretty much everything for convenience for people, so much so that people have changed their long-lived behaviors. We can see this clearly in our addiction to the mobile devices that we use every day. And as a result, we're seeing a dramatic shift in design perspectives, and I can see that in the work of our businesses. Many designers are calling for a move from egoism towards ecosystems. And so we now must design for more than human needs to consider all living things. I think by being purposeful and responsible in our design work, there's not only an opportunity to create more ethical products and services, we can also connect with people, we can connect with our customers and audiences in a more meaningful way. So my third principle gives the design work a contextual depth, and it decenters the designer and the design work away from just human needs. It also seeks to address societal or environmental challenges, and it contributes to sustainable behaviours and aims to make a positive difference in people's lives. So designing with purpose can often feel quite overwhelming for some of the businesses that we work with at STEAMhouse, but there are simple ways that we help them to make a start. And while design thinking or user experience design is anchored on understanding people's problems, when we do systems thinking, it helps us understand the network of things that a problem might exist within and how different elements of that system influence each other. And I've seen simple systems thinking exercises that we do at STEAMhouse transform how people create products and services. It helps them zoom out and consider the consequences of the thing that they're designing. And I think the best way to explore systems, whilst it can feel difficult, is to just start mapping them. So just give it a go. And it's not easy at all, and it's always very messy, but that's really the nature of systems. And the first step that we guide people through at STEAMhouse is called cluster mapping. So simply draw a circle on a piece of paper and describe the problem that you want to tackle in the middle of that circle. Then brainstorm everything that you can think of that relates to that issue. This is always easier with lots of other people. Try not to do it alone. It's all about collaboration. And working together in groups, people can compare what they've brainstormed. They can listen to each other's perspectives on what should be included in the system. And there's no wrong answers. There's always a lively and meaningful debate in this exercise. The next step then is to draw 3 concentric circles that represent the rest of the system and start plotting the elements that you've brainstormed together onto the system's map. And the idea here is to plot the most influential or affected elements closer to the center of the map, so closer to your problem space. Then next, as a team, your aim is to make connections between elements that you've mapped and focus on how those elements interact with each other. By describing these interactions, you can reflect on how your designs are changing the system that they exist in. It's a really simple tool, but very effective. You can ask questions like, is your design team doing harm, and to who or what within the system? And this exercise can highlight what you need to find out in your design research about the effect of your ideas before you start to build them. I think mapping systems is a simple but effective tool that could then be returned to throughout a design project to check in on whether you're being responsible and achieving your purpose as a design team. So another way we find useful is to align on a set of ethical principles in your project. It's a simple way to determine what's important to you as you develop the product. And there are numerous tools available online that can support you to do this. One of our favorite examples is on the right-hand side. It's actually a game. It's called Moral Agent by a company called Ethics for Designs. It's really great because it gamifies what can be quite a difficult process for you and your design team to work on. But it's a simple idea generation game that helps you and the people that you are designing with tackle issues in a fun and challenging way by using creativity. It's useful because it comes preloaded with questions that as a design team we often forget to ask as we get excited about design ideas. So for example, if we want to ensure our design is inclusive and accessible to people, the game might ask us questions such as, how does your idea lower barriers to participation? How does your idea promote adaptation for people? And how can we as a design team move beyond our own biases? Another example which is great is IDEO's AI ethics cards, shown on the left-hand side. And this is a great tool for teams who are working on AI projects or data-driven products and services. And I think whether you use these tools or not, it's a simple way to align with your team on a set of ethical principles. And you can just write a set of critical questions that you can return to again and again as a team as you develop your product. So next up is principle number 4. And this is all about instilling ownership in your design work. And the objective here for the designer or the design team is to create a possession, not simply an object. And with this principle in mind, the design work focuses attention on the user's experience with the object. It's about creating a design that people feel attached to, one that they don't want to give up, and one that they might even fall in love with. When we feel ownership over something, we feel like it's ours. There's an emotional connection between us and the object. Instilling ownership is an important principle that deepens our emotional connection with the design. When we feel we own it, the object holds more meaning for us. However, I should say that models of ownership are changing. We don't own our phone, we don't own our music, some of us don't own our car, so we might even imagine a future where we own nothing. Despite this, we still continue to design physical products, perhaps more so than ever. But these physical products are coupled with digital technologies and service offerings that are often seduced by clever business models. And there's some interesting work by Associate Professor of the Dyson School of Engineering called Weston Baxter, and he argues that because of this change, we've lost track of something at the core of our designs, particularly digital designs, which is understanding how we own or take possession of something. He asks, are we in danger of creating digital experiences that are beautifully obedient but horribly dull? The theory of psychological ownership is based on three basic human motives. The first one is efficacy and affectance. We want to explore and alter our environment. The second one is about self-identity. As humans, we want to develop and communicate our identity to other people. The third is about having a place. We want to cultivate and maintain a territory or a space, and this space could be physical or it could be a digital space. Weston's research is super interesting. It builds on these ideas to show that our possessive feelings with an object result from very specific interactions and experiences that we have with that object. And so to design for ownership, he invites us to experiment with three approaches in our work. The first is to support the generation of intimate knowledge. And that means in your design work, help people acquire information about the object that they use, through its use or through other means. The second recommendation is about control. Let people control the ability to select or use or transform an object as and when they desire. The third recommendation is self-investment. So this is about encouraging people to spend time, money, or physical effort, and even mental energy into the object that you're designing. If we design with these ideas in mind, we're more likely to create possessions over just objects. Okay, and my fifth principle is all about telling stories. And this is about making use of narrative in your designs to evoke memories and emotions in people, to trigger those positive feelings that I spoke about earlier, such as joy, inspiration, or even a sense of belonging. And I've stolen a quote from an interaction designer called Jeffrey Zeldman, who says that design in the absence of narrative is not design, it's simply decoration. So human beings are a social species. We're hard-coded to connect. Storytelling not only allows us to understand information, it allows us to understand each other as people. It makes the information more fun, more memorable. Because stories create an emotional connection, we can gain a deeper understanding of each other's experiences and the material world around us. I think through storytelling in design, we can share information in a multi-sensory way that creates an emotional connection between people and the objects that surround them. Now, storytelling in design is nothing new, but I think it's essential if we want to create products with meaning. We can see from Weston's work in psychological ownership that people want to make connections with the things that they use every day. They want to feel that the designers or the brands that they buy from understand their motivations, their struggles, their hopes, and their desires. So if we want to strengthen the emotional connection between people and their possessions, we should think of the product that we're designing as a story in itself, a tool to communicate and connect with people. Each visual element in your designs can illustrate a core truth about a narrative and its point of view. I think the opportunities for storytelling in product design are endless, and that approach can extend to everything that we create, right down to the everyday or the seemingly mundane, like toilet roll. And Kenya Hara's redesign exhibition is a wonderful example of how designers can lift objects out of invisibility and give them meaning beyond their everyday use. For Hara, the redoing of ordinary design objects is an experiment of sorts, and it's an attempt to look at familiar things as if it was our first time looking at them. For Kenya Hara's exhibition, he asked 32 leading creators to design a new some very ordinary commodities, including toilet paper and matches. And you can see the toilet paper here, designed by architect Shigeru Ban, was a very simple design intervention. It turned the typical central cylinder in the middle of the toilet paper, it turned it into a square. And his square version, gives you just enough paper by generating a little bit of resistance in the pull of the paper. But it also tells us a story. It tells us a story to economize, to save paper. And in addition, it's also helpful in packing and shipping. The rolls fit nicely together and they stack without the need for a toilet roll holder. And the other example is Masahiko Sato's passport control stamps in the middle. And they switch out the typical design on the left-hand side for just a little dose of communication that tells stories about the excitement of travel when we go to new places. And then Kaoru Mendes' twig matches on the right-hand side tell a story about our human relationship with fire, which spans tens of thousands of years. I think it's a powerful symbol to light candles on a birthday or an anniversary occasion. And so we're living in a time where consumers want to know more about how and where the products that they use every day are made. So to help bring about a circular economy, designers can create products that support people to understand the materials and processes and making processes that you're applying to your designs. This will then in turn help them, hopefully, to make more informed purchases. On the left-hand side is Rebecca Sun Collins's outdoor pallet table. And this tells us a story for me about the environment through weathering, through changes of color, texture, and composition. It elevates the role of untreated steel at the surface and turns that into a pigment that colors rainwater and leaves its mark on the surface below. In the center is Paul Coxedge's Slump coffee table, which uses only glass and raw mild steel to tell a story about alternative methods of fabrication. And then also his styrene light on the right-hand side. I noticed in the cafe earlier there was lots of styrene cups, and with Paul Coxedge's design, he uses these styrene cups, places them in the oven, and as they're heated, they take on an organic shape, and that form is left to chance. It can't actually be designed. It's through the heating of the product that it turns into something new. And the material is preserved in a completely new way. I think for me, it tells a story about the value of objects for one, and it also tells us stories about objects that would otherwise be discarded and how we can use those in our design projects. Now, James Shaw's work is loaded for me with stories about contemporary design and objects. James is deeply committed to the theme of recycling, and upon leaving university, he actually made his own extrusion device, which you can see on the far right-hand side of the slide. And this is a device that gives plastic a second life. With his extrusion gun in hand, he creates fun and colourful works, sometimes maintaining the original colour of the plastic and sometimes adding natural pigments. The process is a little bit more like the work of a sculptor. The plastic solidifies really quickly, so the process needs to be improvisational as he creates new objects. And I think for me, his work tells stories about not only the untapped resources around us, but it also questions the notion of waste to create new objects that challenge our perceptions of aesthetics in design. I think what each of the examples that I've described so far, I think what they do really well is to kind of delight us through the narrative and the storytelling that they use. They help us to connect with them in a very meaningful way. And I think if we're going to bring new products into the world, why not try and make people smile when we do that? And I think charming products that use wit and humour connect to our inner child. They often take on characters of their own, and they sometimes feel like part of the family in our homes. Just here, the light that you can see is Gitta Gestretner's uncanny lamps, and each of these lamps are individual. They're designed specifically for their own space. And like most of her work, the lamps are normal things that have just gone a little bit strange. And they kind of come alive in a space because of that strangeness. Just next to that is a wine glass from William Warren. It's called the Drunk Wine Glass. And it came from the observation that when identical objects roll off the production line, it's the mistakes that have more quality and personality. And with glass blowing, the better you are at the craft, the more your wine glasses will look like a machine has made them. But the drunk wine glass, with William Warren, was blown by highly skilled craftsmen, but before they did the glass blowing, they drank a lot of wine. And the wine consumption then forces mistakes, and the otherwise standard glass takes on the character of drinking wine itself. And then, of course, Carl Clarkin's dormouse, which is a very sweet mouse-shaped door wedge, which is machined from beech with a brown leather tail, and why not? Okay, so my sixth and final principle for meaningful design is to arouse people's senses. This is all about designing for our feeling, our emotional connection to the world. It's as much a sensory experience as a cognitive one. While dealing with shape, colour, material and texture are all really important parts of design, I think that this principle is about how you make someone sense something through the design. Designing for our senses instead speaks to our biology. We connect with sensory objects in a way that's often quite difficult to describe. It's kind of a visceral feeling for us. But I think if we design with this principle in mind, our focus is on activating touch, sound, smell, taste, and also the wisdom that we have in our own bodies. So by designing for the senses, we can create inherently inclusive products that connect with people across cultures in a meaningful way. Fukasawa's banana fruit juice package here, I think, reveals something in common with the actual feeling of holding a banana. The banana stem is perfectly placed on the packaging flap, top right, and the design can't be seen as anything but a banana. But I think it's super clever because it immediately awakens our taste buds to the flavour that you'll encounter inside the packaging. Then just before the last image there is from Panasonic. It's a design from Panasonic. It's a concept for a remote control that kind of droops as if it was dead when it's not in use. But when the remote control is switched on, it immediately becomes stiffened and it kind of awakes, it becomes animated. And when someone reaches out to use it, the whole piece begins to glow a different colour. And while this piece never made it into production, I think it's a wonderful example of technological objects, how they can take on a new meaning when we design for our senses. Okay, so there we have it. We have our 6 principles for meaningful design. The first is to solve people's problems. The second, fit the design into people's lives, make it intuitive for people, make it enjoyable and easy. The third is to be purposeful and responsible in your design work with your design team. The fourth is to try and instill ownership in the relationship between a person and the objects that surround them. The fifth is to tell stories, and the sixth is to arouse people's senses. I think if we design with these principles in mind, we stand a good chance of making an emotional connection between people and the objects or technologies that they use every day. Overall, meaningful design goes beyond just problem solving and surface level aesthetics to create experiences that connect with people's emotions, values and aspirations, while hopefully addressing real needs and making a positive impact in the world. But that's just what I think. So I'd quite like to hear what you guys think too. But muchas gracias, thank you.